Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan, Dave Smith going in on Chris Cuomo. Oh, you guys know how this channel works. We don't like to listen to Chris Cuomo unless it's absolutely necessary. And if Joe Rogan's going to be given the business of Chris Cuomo, we have to cover it. We have no choice. I absolutely love that he's going at Chris Cuomo, but Chris Cuomo fires some shots back while on Patrick Bet-David's podcast alongside Charlie Kirk. Very, very, I'm not even going to say interesting, because Chris Cuomo, we'll get into it, but I'm going to play the Joe Rogan clip first, then I'm going to play the Patrick Bet-David clip, and then we're going to get into the work of Mike Wallace. Do you guys even know who that is? Ask your fathers about him really quick if you don't. But let's start with the Joe Rogan clip. Let's go.
Did you enjoy me giving the business to Chris Cuomo over that? That was one of my favorite moments of this year. That was a good one.
He was trying to do CNN outside of CNN.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when he said, "I've never said that," and then they pull up the clip like immediately of him demonizing.
Shout out to Patrick Bet-David's crew, because they really had my back on that one.
Yes.
You know, it's not like I didn't send them that clip before or anything,
well,
but they in real time had that ready to go.
They had a Jamie too.
Yeah, they had, everybody's got a Jamie now.
Not Jamie. There's only one Jamie.
There's only one Jamie, but there's a lot of knockoffs.
Yeah, a lot of knockoffs. But the fact that you checked him in real time and he just had to sit there and eat it, it's just, they were puppets. They were puppets for the system. They were doing it because that was their job. That's how you get ahead in your career. You want to be the main guy at CNN, that's what you do. And that's what they were doing. And now he's not doing it anymore. Good luck to him. I hope he does stay on an independent path and becomes an objective person. And he's made some strides towards that, I think. I think he's taken some lumps, and I think you beat the out of him in that debate. That debate was Mike Tyson's early fights. So you see the white dude with the muffin top who just gets flatlined in 15 seconds. That's what that was.
I mean, look, man, and it's not really like a comment on me. It's not that I'm so amazing at debates. It's just like the argument here is so
weak. You're pretty good at debates. You're pretty good at it. You're pretty good at it.
I'm not bad at it.
But also,
I'm just right about this.
The facts were on your side.
Yeah, I mean, that's my superpower isn't that I'm like the smartest guy or the best at debates. It's just that like I'm right in what I'm arguing, and that makes it much easier. I got there was an organization that was pitching me on a debate, a 2-on-2 debate, which I don't really like doing 2-on-2 debates. I've done
too many people talking.
It's too much. Yeah. One-on-one is the way to do it. But they pitched me this like months after that. I think it was, if I'm not wrong, I think the topic was about whether Joe Biden should drop out of the race or not. And they pitched me that it would be a 2-on-2 debate against two people. I don't remember who were saying he should stay in, and it was going to be me and Chris Cuomo against them. And I told them, I was like, no, I will not be on his side. And like, I don't, I'm kind of over, we had our thing. I gave him a beating. I think he deserved it. But I'm just like, listen, man, I'll team up with like a left winger on something I agree with. I'll team up with a right winger on something I agree with. I'll team up with like a moderate on something I agree with. But no, not the corporate media guy who was the #1 show at CNN. Like, I'm not on their side. Even if I'm on their side on this issue, I'm against them. And I know that this has probably been a theme of like every single time I'm on this show over the last 10 years or whatever it's been. But I just, and maybe it's a problem. I hate them so much. And I really think they deserve it. And it's not just that they lie about everything. It's like they lie about everything, and then they have the nerve to morally judge us. Like, if you just watch even just the last few weeks of the Trump election, they're not in the business of reporting the news. They're totally just in the business of making you feel like you're a bad person if you don't fall in line with the regime.
Right.
And, it's like all of us know, right? Everybody knows this. America has this giant war machine. Right? Like, we're just always at war. We're the most war-hungry country in the world. Even if we're taking a little bit of a break from a war, we'll fight 2 more proxy wars while we do that. America looks back at the 90s, Bill Clinton, as the time of peace and prosperity. We call it peace because we only fought a war in like Serbia and had a blockade around Iraq, and we're like bombing the crap out of Iraq with a few other military interventions in there too. The UN estimated that Bill Clinton's sanction and bombing regime of Iraq, okay, everyone just thinks of George H.W. Bush's war and W's war, but Bill Clinton was bombing Iraq and you had a full blockade around the country. The UN estimated that 500,000 children died of starvation or malnutrition due to the blockade. Now, I've heard people argue, by the way, that number is exaggerated. Maybe it wasn't 500,000. Maybe it was only 100,000. So that's the time that we consider peace. when we were just starving 100,000 children to death in Iraq. And you, everybody in the corporate media, are in the business. Every single one of those wars, you've sold them. Everyone, my entire life, the media has sold those wars. And you're going to morally look down on me? You're going to judge me? You're in the business of baby murder. Get the out of here. You're looking down, judging an American because maybe I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, or maybe I dare to question the results of the last election. You, dude. And man, and it was a challenge debating him because they were playing the clips. You know, even before they played that clip that sunned him because he had said he didn't say that and then he clearly did, but they were just playing the clips of the way they were talking to people during COVID and the pandemic of the unvaccinated, and it's you, Mr. Vac skeptic, you're the reason why this and man, it was getting me angry. Like I was just like, all right, I gotta control this here because this is too like
how sweet is it that he's on ivermectin now? I mean, it's how sweet is that, though? That is the nuttiest part of it all.
Could you just set someone up for a better?
He wants to say long, like, hey, buddy, let me tell you something. If you got a novel medication and into your body more than once, you probably had to do it twice. You probably at least had to get one booster, and you have some problem, and you're saying this long-term problem is long. Are you sure? Are you sure? Or maybe that medicine that they inject into your body, you got vaccine injured.
Yeah.
You don't want to say that, though, because you still want some sort of a job in corporate media, so you have to toe the line. You should be very concerned that this novel before never mass inject into people. Who knows how many different people are going to have different results from some medication, some terrible weird way their biology interacts with this medication is going to cause a horrible side effect. And now you're on ivermectin to treat that. That's rich.
And the way he tried to spin it, that
it's for long
he wasn't, but he tried to say, because I mean, he really should have just thrown in the white towel. He would have done much better for himself
saying
in that debate.
Wrong.
If you could listen, I was at CNN. And I kind of just took for granted that they have the best experts. And so I trusted their experts. And now I realize they were. If he had said that, that would have been very hard. I still would have been harsh on him, but it would have been a different conversation and a different dynamic. What he did was he refused to admit that. And then, and this is really what got me, is that then he started kind of like attacking my motives. Like he was like, oh yeah, no, he goes, I know that, you know, this is probably good for your podcast numbers and stuff, but like as if I don't really believe what I'm saying.
Well, because
I'm just doing this to make money.
They function.
Right.
That's why they're accusing you of functioning that way. They're accusing you of doing things just because you know they're going to be outrageous and get a lot of views.
Which is, but you know, like, you know me, I don't do that.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
No, I know you don't.
I know you don't. Podcast in the world, and I don't do anything based on how many views I think it's going to get. That's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't like, there is nothing I say that I don't believe. I might be wrong about some stuff, but everything I say, I believe. I'm not like ever saying anything because just like, oh, this will, you know, like bring in bigger numbers or something like that.
They think that way. That's why he's accusing you of that.
Yeah,
because that's a motivation for people that are in that industry. If you're in the industry of being a mouthpiece for network news, like there's a very narrow window of behavior that you have to operate under. You have to stay inside these lines, and whatever, if you're on Fox or if you're on CBC, NBC or whatever it is, MSNBC, anyone, you have a narrative. They have a narrative in the office. There's a culture. There's 100%. A way people think about that, and this is your job. So you're going to do the things that you think are going to get you more ratings. You're going to do the stories that are going to get people more outraged. That's how you're thinking.
Man, I love to see it, especially that part where Dave talks about, kudos to Dave, had the opportunity. You're going to be, I'm assuming it would have been on the Patrick Bet David podcast, but maybe it was some other publication where he's teamed up with Cuomo, but I can't see any other publication really giving Cuomo and Dave Smith an opportunity to come together and debate other than Patrick Bet David. But would have been some more views, maybe a boost in subscribers, things of that nature. But he says no, because I'm not on this guy's side. And even if we do agree on whatever it is that we're supposed to debate these other people on, I'm still not doing it. That's exactly what I would do. When it comes to Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon, any of Brian Stelter, any of them, just stay away. Stay away. 100% stay away. Because I talk about exactly what Dave was saying. Just the way that they operated and the anxiety, and with some people who are softer and a little more sheltered, the terror that they put inside of people Just like, no problem. Just like, whatever. I'm getting my paycheck. Yeah. I'm just going to scare the hell out of you. Who cares? Whatever. Whatever. Just do what's right. You know, I'm just going to make you so fearful. I'm just going to make it so you and your brother don't talk anymore. Oh, man. At least Brian Stelter, it's like, I don't know what he's thinking anymore. Don Lemon, it's like, whatever. I don't even know where Don is. He left X. I have no idea what he's going to be doing next. He's going to be on Facebook doing lives. I don't know. But with Chris, it's like he's just outwardly just like, I didn't do anything. What? Huh? No, I'm just looking for the truth. That's all. It's like, man, just one of those guys, man. Terrible. Why can't they all be like Tucker? I'm going on to the next clip. Why can't they be all like Tucker and just leave and just go nuts and just be like, where's Putin? Where's Xi Jinping? I want to interview Xi Jinping. Why not? Why can't they all just get like that? You know? Tucker, man. He's a one of one, I tell you. Anyways, let me slow down this clip. Charlie Kirk. Let me slow it down. It was Charlie Kirk, Chris Cuomo, Patrick Bet-David, and I think Chris Cuomo heard what I just played for you. I think he actually may have heard this because, you know, he's just taking these slight jabs at Rogan for no reason, really.
Right. It's state by state with the Senate, though, right? The governors replace, and then whether they give them the full term or a special election is state by state.
However, it is an immediate fill of a vacancy
Right.
that is in the U.S. Constitution. However, a House of Representatives member does not get a vacancy filled by a governor appointment. So it remains vacant until a special election, which is a very important technical difference. So, for example, if Marco Rubio does end up getting Secretary of State, not verified yet, everybody, Governor DeSantis the next morning can say XYZ.
So you don't lose the seat.
You don't lose the seat. The House of Representatives, Elise Stefanik, Governor Hochul does not.
That's a very important distinction to know the difference between those two things.
Yeah, Governor Hochul doesn't replace.
Yeah, because you're picking your people who are you think are the right people, but you may be depleting the team that you need.
Yeah,
correct.
You know, so it's an interesting thing. And also, you know, your point about look at it in truth, it's part of the blessing and curse of social media. You know, your TikTok, when we were looking at it, you got 5 million followers, which is a really big number on TikTok. But your views are way, way beyond your followers. That is the blessing and curse of social media, is that things get put out, and if they're good for you, great. If they're bad for you, terrible, because it'll be seen a gazillion more times than even the people who are looking at you, which is something that can be weaponized. And, you know, I don't know the answer to it. I really don't. It's easy to say, and the media loves to do this. The media loves to hate on itself, which is, you know, something you realize when you've been in it for a while. So they're enjoying very much now saying digital media, podcast, that's where it is. That's where it is.
Can I interject on that, though? And I want your thought, Chris. So I have an opinion that the next wave, the American people will not reward a presidential candidate with their vote if they cannot sustain a 3-hour uninterrupted podcast like Rogan or this one. I think that is the new standard. I think the days that Meet the Press or sitting down with 60 Minutes for a 15-minute interview, I think those days are being sunsetted. And I think the new normal is that you have to earn my vote by sitting down with Joe Rogan for 3 hours, sitting down with PBD. Because here's what long-form podcasting does. There's no breaks. It could go any direction. There's a million different ways, and therefore very difficult to prepare for. So you get a very, very accurate picture of who the individual actually is.
I think you are correct that the expectations of the electorate are changing. I think that forum is unknown at this point. Joe Rogan is certainly not Mike Wallace. Okay, so
I don't diminish Joe. I think Joe Rogan is way smarter than people give credit for.
I'm not saying he's not smart. I'm saying, look, I watched every second of him with Trump. Okay, I've watched 50 hours of Joe Rogan. I think he calls it a conversation for a reason. By the way, I'm a big fan of conversation. I do a lot more of it now than I used to. I used to just do testing sessions because I didn't have the time.
Fair enough. No, I know that.
So I had to zero in. I'm not denigrating Joe Rogan. His success speaks for itself. What I'm saying is, I don't see him as a legit vetter of
I disagree.
people.
Can I say something on that?
I disagree, but I want PB to go.
Yeah, let me say something on that. So, when I was coming up in the financial space, I had such a fear of asking myself, dude, I don't have a finance degree. I'm sitting in a class with Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, guy sitting to my left in my class of Morgan's at Mark Hopkins Hotel, San Francisco, because 9/11 happened, so we couldn't go to World Trade Center. They sent us to their office in San Francisco. You know what the kid's name was sitting to my left? That was a new advisor with Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter. Ted Williams III. I'm sitting, I'm like, how the F am I going to compete with your market? This guy goes and presents, hi, I'm Ted Williams III with Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter. I'd like to talk to you about your defensive strategy when it comes onto your investment. Do you have 30 to 45 minutes to spend time with me? Of course. Do you have any stories? I'd love to tell you some stories. Hi, I am Patrick Bedavid coming to you from Iran, and I want to tell you how I can give you some offensive strategy on your investment. Who the F are you? Did you say Iran? Yes. Hell no, you're not coming to my house, right? So I'm like, how the hell are you going to compete with these guys? This guy, finance degree, and then I go in and I realize, no. That fooled you. Outwork, out-improve, out-strategize, outlast, and common sense. Very simple. Maybe the political party, if you set aside the left, right, center, and we gave a score to common sense. I saw a clip by this lady. Rob, if you can prepare this clip. She's a political analyst. She goes to buy a bottle of wine, and she's talking to the person. I want you to, this is how I feel sometimes, people that are in this business of politics for so long that they think so highly of themselves that they're pompous, arrogant, and play this clip. Look at the reaction, how she talks. Folks, tell me how likable this personality is. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so we're closing in on almost 5 p.m. Eastern time, and
this
I've been tracking
day.
everything that's been going on across the country today. And my most important encounter was when I went out to get my champagne. I was talking to the guy in the store, of course, asking him, did he vote? And he said he did early voting, and he asked me if I early voted. And he asked me, why I was getting the champagne. And I said, because I'm going to be toasting Madam President tonight. And he just looked at me with kind of like a smirk on his face. And I said, she's going to win this, right? And he says, oh, well, it's very, very close. And I said, no, it's not. He says, well, what do you mean? I said, no, it's not. The women of America are making their voices heard. Reproductive rights is what it all comes down to. And the women are voting in numbers relative to men that are unbelievable. She's won this. And I said to him, she's going to take every one of the swing states plus Iowa. And he said, oh, but the numbers are so close. I said, I'm a political analyst.
I'm a political analyst.
Right now, the numbers are there. She's taking this election. And then I said to him, you realize, and he didn't tell me who he voted for, but of course I knew. And I said, you do realize you wasted your vote, right? And I didn't care. And I walked out with my bottle of champagne and happily walked home. Bye-bye.
I just want to interrupt really quick. We found someone worse than Chris Cuomo. Wow. Just the most unlikable person ever. Just the worst. Just crazy.
By the way,
how's she doing now?
Well, I would love to see her go back to that same liquor to buy that champagne.
She's probably been buying a lot of liquor.
By the way, it's not champagne. It's much harder stuff than that.
It's probably absent. But going back to it, see, to me, that lady is so indoctrinated. She probably went to the right school. She probably did everything the right way. She is so, brainwashed into her thinking. Then you got a guy like this, okay, a Joe Rogan, where, some people say, well, listen, like, even you were complimentary of us earlier, like, political analysts, all this stuff. I think Charlie, for sure. I'm just a regular business guy.
No, you're a big deal. You know that.
But in the business space, I have my own opinions and my thoughts on how I'm processing issues. And you see this guy brings Trump in. 40 million views. The next day, J.D. Vance. 15 million views. The next day, which was my favorite of all the podcasts, Fetterman. And it didn't perform that well. But that was my favorite, Fetterman.
Yeah, but there's a reason that Trump does 40, Vance does 15, and Fetterman does 5. And it also shows that the draw isn't Joe.
But No, but that's so it's Fetterman.
Look, I'm not insulting him.
And then
I'm
after
saying
Fetterman,
he's got a great platform.
Musk comes in, but I think the
numbers went back up.
Hear me out though. You know when in baseball we watched Moneyball the other day for the 50th time. You know why I freaking love that movie?
Jonah Hill.
I love. By the way, he's the only speaker, Billy Bean, that I've paid 3 times to come and speak at our events. And you know.
You guys know, if you know Patrick Bet-David, this guy, he will just go off on these tangents. Like, yeah, people talk about Trump and how he weaves things back and forth. Patrick Bet-David will just weave things. He just takes the weave. He gets on a bus. He goes all the way that way. He gets on a plane, goes all the way that way. Then he comes back on a private jet. It's too much sometimes. But Chris Cuomo taking these shots at Joe Rogan. And, some of you guys don't know who Mike Wallace is. There's some key things that were just brought up in that clip. Charlie Kirk talks about how people aren't going to put up with these interviews from 60 Minutes and Meet the Press. 60 Minutes because of how they completely edited and distorted reality when it came to their Kamala Harris interview. It was crazy. It was nuts what they did, and you could tell they were trying to position her in a way where she didn't look bad. They wanted her to look as good as possible. Now, when you talk about Meet the Press, this is where I know Chris Wallace, I know Chris Cuomo, sorry. He doesn't watch Mike Wallace. He doesn't know much about him. He definitely didn't watch 50 hours of Joe Rogan. I'd be surprised if he actually watched the full Trump interview. He just kind of talks. Because if you know Mike Wallace, then you know Mike Wallace is like Meet the Press. He doesn't have conversations. To say Joe Rogan's no Mike Wallace, yes, that's it. It's like saying Joe Rogan's no Anderson Cooper. Yeah, perfect. That's what I was looking for. Mike Wallace was an interviewer, and he was good, but he was like, picture someone who interviews Trump from the mainstream media. That's how Mike Wallace treated all of his guests. So it was never him giving his opinion. It was always him interrupting, but also letting people talk. But it was just a journalist for the mainstream interviewing people. And the longest I've seen, because I actually do watch Mike Wallace. I watch a lot of interviewers where you think I wouldn't watch them. I watch Howard Stern, Mike Wallace. I watch James Lipton. There's like a whole bunch of like old interviewers that I watch all the time because this channel is going to turn into that eventually. So I'm brushing up. So when it comes to Mike Wallace, he would press on people. He would borderline attack people, put them into that type of position. So to say that Joe Rogan's no Mike Wallace, he's right, but also that's not what the people of today want. He's talking about being, I think he said a legit veteran. I'm assuming he said legit veteran in the interviewer space. Yes, he is. He's been doing it for 16, 15 years now. He actually is a veteran in the interview space. It's just so odd that he takes these weird digs and then goes on to say that Joe Rogan's not the draw. Mike Wallace was, do you guys even know who Mike Wallace is? This guy was never the draw. You didn't watch an interview. Believe me, no one tuned into this interview because Mike Wallace. They tuned into this interview because, he's sitting down with that Donald Trump character.
Things to do.
Politics?
So many. No, not politics.
You've said that you could do a better job at negotiating an arms control agreement with the Soviets than some of these professionals who've been trying to do it for years.
I didn't say me, Mike. I said somebody has to do it. If it were me, that'd be fine. I could do it. Somebody has to help this country. And if they don't, the country and the world are in big trouble. Because within a short period of time, as sure as we're sitting here, there's not going to be a country and there's not going to be a world.
So, Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace is here. You guys can check that out. He does a lot of interviews like this. Also, to say that Joe Rogan is no Mike Wallace, well, there is something, and who you're seeing on the screen right now is Henry Kissinger. There is something that Joe Rogan does exactly like Mike Wallace. He interviews major, big names that other people can't get. This is Mike Wallace sitting down with Henry Kissinger.
Which were very great efforts. Nevertheless, we've always justified them on the basis of a communist threat. very rarely on the basis of things we wanted to do because of our intrinsic dynamism. I believe, for example, that we reacted very wrongly to the riots in Latin America. Rather than saying these are communist-inspired and we must react to, we must keep Latin America from going communist, we should have said this recalls us to our duty. These are things we want to do because of the values we stand for, not because we want to beat the communists.
But the question is, why are we as unaware? Why are we as unavailing? Is it because we have been projected into world leadership in too much of a hurry, unprepared for it? Is that one of the reasons?
This is one of our very basic reasons, is that we've been projected too much in a hurry.
So I'm not going to play too much of it because Henry Kissinger, not playing all that. Just dead eyes. Definitely changed his views on communism into his later years, I have to say, with his mentee Klaus Schwab. If you didn't know, Henry Kissinger is actually Klaus Schwab's mentor. He's passed away since. Won't say. I guess it's sad to someone. It definitely is. Condolences to that person or people, perhaps. So that was Mike Wallace. Joe Rogan is like Mike Wallace. He's interviewed Trump. Mike Wallace interviewed Trump. He's interviewed the biggest names. But what Joe Rogan does is actually much harder than what Mike Wallace would do. Mike Wallace would do the mainstream media version of an interview. And he would do it for 30 minutes at a time, and that would be it. Okay? Joe Rogan has to inject his opinion. He talks for at least 3 hours, sometimes 2.5. But, 3-hour conversations. He goes very long form, and he tries to get the person to open up as a person. Whereas Mike Wallace would just concentrate on the political aspects of whoever he was in front of. So, Chris Cuomo's just wrong on every front, all the time. Every time he opens his mouth, it's always just gobbledy nonsense. Like, he just says things to say them. Oh, he's no Mike Wallace. Why would we in 2024 want a Mike Wallace? That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for Tucker Carlson to be at his dining room table. That's what he says. His dining room table, having conversations with journalists, talking about the deep state. That's what we want. We want Joe Rogan talking to presidents, talking to vice presidents, major historical figures, having historical conversations, long form conversations. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for the mainstream anymore. And that's another thing, going back to what Joe Rogan and Dave Smith were talking about, is that's how these guys think. He's so indoctrinated into CNN that he thinks, well, I mean, JRE is no Fox News, that's for sure. It's like, yeah, JRE is no MSNBC. It's like, yeah, that's how it is now. We're not looking for that anymore. We're not interested in that anymore. I just found it so. I don't like Chris Cuomo. I don't like the way he operates. I wish he was more humble about things, that he could admit where he was wrong. But that was him just kind of giving these little jabs at Joe Rogan. Charlie Kirk was very, very, much standing up for Joe Rogan. Patrick Bet-David the same way. And, it's ironic that they showed that clip of that lady who is just so unlikable, because that is what Chris Cuomo is like. That's exactly what he's like. They're talking to Chris Cuomo about the biggest news outlet. No, I shouldn't say news outlet. The biggest media outlet in the world, which is Joe Rogan's platform. And he's just like, I don't know about that. I mean, we need some veterans. I mean, I have conversations a lot too nowadays. He just doesn't get it. He'll never get unbrainwashed. Yeah, I don't think it'll ever happen, Anyways, guys. Chris Cuomo. Oh my gosh. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, and of course, I apologize for putting Chris Cuomo on the screen. I'm out.